Today, after the gym, I decided to go over to Kroger's to pick up some snacks for work this week. Some protein bars, some beef jerky, a couple bags of corn nuts. The little things that keep you somewhat satisfied at your desk while you're bored out of your mind. As I was walking through the Kroger's, even before I got into the store, I looked at all the small businesses that line the parking lot. And I thought, look at all those places that are closed for Easter. For some reason, it unsettled me to think about all of those people sitting at home with their families. And then I started walking around inside of the grocery store, just not really looking for anything in particular, just looking around. I was standing in the meat aisle thinking about how long it takes to cook meat, and I thought, you know what? I don't want to waste 20 minutes or half an hour cooking something before work in the morning. It's not worth it. And as I stood there, there was this Asian girl. I would say she's about 5'3". I wouldn't call her skinny, but she definitely wasn't heavy. Just that sort of in between with really muscular thighs and yoga shorts and a white university shirt. And I looked at her, and my first thought was, maybe. And so that's what I was thinking about while I was thinking about what I was going to talk about in this afternoon's video. And I thought, I ran into her again several more times. We ran into each other at least 5 times. The last time I saw her, she was in the soft drink aisle. And it's not like one of those where a passing glance. When I turned, as I was walking past her, I turned and I looked at her. And she looked right at me, and we held our stare for at least a solid 2 seconds. You know what it's like when a person looks at you and they're trying to decide what you want. And so I thought, she's a solid 3. I'm a solid 1. Maybe. And that's the word that kept coming back to my mind. Maybe. So as I was putting together this video, first of all, I did a lookup on what an H-1B visa is really for. And it requires a bachelor's degree in the field, and the initial duration is 3 years. And I started thinking about what would happen if they started opening all of these jobs in America, all these jobs that have been done in the Asian countries since since after World War II, maybe, when the manufacturing jobs went overseas. And I kept thinking about what farmers had to deal with when they couldn't find people when they were taking away their immigrant labor, and how the farms just went bust because no one would work that hard for such little money. And with those thoughts in mind, I threw that into ChatGPT, just one long, I'd say 10 to 12 sentences, and it gave me this back as a monologue. They keep saying they're bringing jobs back, but no one wants to admit the truth. They're not bringing them back for people like me, not for the kid who went to school, followed the rules, and still ended up broke, tired, and invisible. They want free labor, not lives. Bodies that won't complain, hands that won't ask for more, and when we say we deserve better, they call us lazy. Because it's easier to shame the worker than pay them what they're worth. It's easier to shame people for wanting to take vacations, wanting to be comfortable, shaming people for not sacrificing themselves for jobs that just aren't worth it. And that's what we do in this country. When a person complains, I get this in my comment section all the time. When you complain about how crappy those jobs are every month when they come out with a new jobs report and it shows that 250,000 jobs were created, you think about, what are those jobs? They're the jobs that no one wants. They're the jobs that pay nothing. They're the jobs that require you to bow your head down in shame and put on that uniform. The dignity of work has been gone in this country for a long time, and it was replaced with the crap job. And when I think of the unemployment statistics being at 4.1%, I think of all the people right now that can't afford to live off a single job. They're like me. I mean, right now I'm working and it's Sunday. It's Easter Sunday. And all those people that I saw working today at the various building or various businesses that I went to, they didn't have a choice about working on Easter. They had to. When I worked at Walmart, there was only one day a year in which you were guaranteed that you were going to be off. And it wasn't even a paid holiday. Walmart doesn't pay for holidays. You want to take Christmas off? You better have PTO. Because if you don't have PTO, you're not getting paid for Christmas. I couldn't believe when that happened because if you don't request it off, it automatically takes any PTO that you have. It was barbaric and one of the most sour spots of working for that awful company for that many years. And again, no one that's there wants to be there. All right, so let's get into a talking point number 1, 2, and 3. Let's start out with 1 because I think this is going to be one that's going to hit home with me. Made in America doesn't mean work by Americans. Ouch. When I was working in retail and I would see that sticker or that printed on a product, you know what I instantly thought? It's not made by Susie. It's made by a person who's in the prison system. All the major corporations use prison labor in this country. I could bring up a list on the screen and show you how many of the products that you buy employ prison labor. Because if you want to get past the minimum wage, past the federal minimum wage, there's only one wage corporations really want to pay, and that's nothing. They want labor to be free, and I've been saying this for years. But I'm getting a foul stench of this administration's view on bringing back jobs. Because made in America has never meant made by people who want to live a decent life. Made in America doesn't mean dignity of the American worker. In fact, it's the indignity. Because you have people who are forced to do those jobs while being trapped and a lot of it stems from having to turn to an alternative lifestyle because you can't make enough money to live on if you play by the rules. You think rich people play by the rules? They're the most corrupt people in our entire society. Corporations love to say they're bringing jobs back to the United States, but they're not bringing back livable wages. If Americans refuse to work for poverty pay, companies will outsource the labor domestically. There's the word, people, domestically, through imported workers, prison labor, or automation. It's patriotism in branding, not in practice. That's what I was most afraid of when I started seeing these tariffs. They were going to try to bring back a different kind of of a worker working in America. They're trying to bring back the full-blown plantation in this country. And everyone just assumes that these jobs that are going to be created when jobs come to America are going to be jobs that you and I want to do. The reality is we are not going to want to do those jobs, or those jobs would be here already. Every tech company has announced publicly, like they have no shame, saying that, oh, you know what, we need workers that are highly technical. We're going to outsource the job to Mexico and India. Google's publicly said this so many times, it's almost like they've normalized it. They don't want to pay the American general laborer a living wage. They want you scraping. They want you desperate. They want you afraid. They want you to fear layoffs. They don't want you to have anything. Patriotism, it doesn't exist. There are certain words in our society that don't mean anything to poor people, like dignity. There's no dignity in being humiliated at work every single day, to be belittled by management, only to be disposed of. when you complain about the terrible working conditions inside of these places, no one will tell you that working for Amazon's a good job, especially not if you're a warehouse worker, with how unsafe they are, the way they treat people in the most undignified way once you pass in the workplace. Like that woman who passed on at Wells Fargo in her office and no one noticed her for 4 days. That could be any of us. Something happens. I mean, work is stressful. I mean, you could croak at any moment just from the stress all week long. I feel the stress in my stomach. It's only on the weekends when I finally get away from Evil Corp that my body stops going into shock. The moment I walk into the office at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, my body instantly doesn't like it. I get stomach cramps. I get panicky. I get even more depressed than normal. And all of that happens all week long. And it doesn't go away at night because you don't stop thinking about going to a labor camp just because you're asleep. The American workplace right now is absolutely disgusting. Talking point number 2: refusing exploitation isn't laziness. The phrase "no one wants to work anymore" is just another way to shame people into settling for less. It paints dignity as entitlement and desperation as virtue. But not wanting to ruin your body or mind for $15 an hour isn't a character flaw. It's survival. You know, people are always talking about the trades, but the trades you're exposed to, at least in welding, exposed to dangerous chemicals, breathing it in, touching it with your hands. Every dirty job is called a dirty job because you're sacrificing your health and your body for wages that aren't worth it. That's the worst part about all of this of working in America is it's just not worth it. Working for the federal minimum wage of $7.25, it's not worth it to your mental health, to your physical health. When I worked at Walmart, I could see people deteriorating in real time. Your hair starts falling out from bad nutrition and stress and people treating you like garbage. My hair, I instantly developed a golf ball sized clump of hair that started falling out of my head. Every person that had been there for a long time, all of the management was completely bald. And everywhere you walk around in the store, there's a certain film on the shelves and on the products. There's something about the air inside of those places that's not good to breathe. And do you think that they don't know that? Do you think they don't understand the danger to your health of working a job like that? Of course they know. But they're willing to sacrifice you for record profits. Because knowing that the job sucks already means that you're not going to come in there and start busting your hump like the owner. You're not coming in to give maximum effort for minimum wage. Although that was a phrase that management coined and told me every single day. Maximum effort, minimum wage. And you just look at them like, are you okay? Did you fall on your head? What's wrong with you? How can you possibly think that giving people nothing will make them work really hard for you? If anything, working in a place in a low paying job is going to demoralize you, it's going to humiliate you, and it's going to make you come into work feeling all of those thoughts. There's no amount of company huddles or pizza parties or employee appreciation day that has no meaning whatsoever. Your 5% discount with your employee number is not enough to offset all the pitfalls of working for nothing. It just doesn't work. People want to live, and corporations don't want people to live. They don't want people thriving. They don't want people happy. They want you smiling. But you're not supposed to be happy because a happy worker has no place in an American job. At least not in a low-level job. No job that I've ever had in my life. It's despicable what they expect of minimum wage workers, of people that make nothing. They want you to come to work and treat it like it's the best thing since sliced bread, And when you look at your paycheck, it, it's it's not enough to support one person, let alone start a family. Talking point number 3. They'll criminalize unemployment before they raise wages. When corporations can't lure people into low paying jobs, the system will pivot to punishment, cutting off benefits, pushing work pushing work requirements, and even threatening jail for job refusal. This isn't about job creation. It's about control. Economic freedom scares the people who profit from your exhaustion. They are afraid. Every time I talk about universal basic income, which is absolutely necessary for every American worker who's working at the bottom. But every time I mention it, someone in the comments inevitably says that rich people will find some way of taking it away from you. Because it's true. We spend 90% of our income just on survival. Almost everything we make goes back into just staying alive. There's no money at the end of the month for you to save for retirement. There's no money at the end of the month for you to live in safe housing. There's nothing left at the end of the month other than waiting for that next paycheck. And they prefer it that way. Why would they want a plantation slave that doesn't need the job? They want to seek out the most desperate human beings that are out there in order to employ them in that paycheck to paycheck scenario where they know that any other expense is going to force you into committing certain deeds that might make you even more affordable as a worker. Because once you enter the punishment system never goes away. Once you're forced into that alternative lifestyle and you get labeled as a criminal, now you're going to have an even harder time trying to support yourself, let alone a small family. Once they put that, once they add criminal onto your L on your forehead, you're in for a lifetime of pain and suffering and a revolving door prison system that punishes you long after you've left, but keeps the lights on because they know you'll be back. And it's intended that way. If people could really thrive in our society, who would do all the crap work? And this is why I'm questioning whether or not these tariffs are in the best interest of the American people. Because in my opinion, bringing back the manufacturing jobs is just going to bring a different kind of worker to this country. And we acknowledge that already. Because who works in our meatpacking industry? Who works in our farming industry? Who works in our hospitality industry? All the people that can't find better jobs because of limitations on what they can do. And that includes not being able to speak the language and not understanding American culture. And they don't really have much of a choice. I mean, I'm the son of immigrants, first generation immigrants. My parents didn't have a choice on whether they were going to pick fruit or clean toilets. That was the job they came to America to do. That's the job that they wanted millions of people to do. That's why I find it hilarious that they're trying to kick out all their cheap labor, because there has to be a devious plan, because nefarious people think this way. Rich people didn't get rich by paying a lot of money. That's actually a quote from The Simpsons, where Bill Gates comes in to destroy Homer's internet business. And Bill Gates says to Homer, I didn't get rich by writing a lot of checks. That's how corporations are. That's why Nike is saying it's not bringing manufacturing jobs to America. There's more money to be made in selling to the other countries rather than losing money by bringing jobs here. But who knows? This is just my theory on what will happen. It makes sense to me because I know how greedy corporations are, but I definitely don't see them bringing high paying jobs back to America, because that boat sailed a long time ago. They don't want real wages in America. They want people to consume on credit. And as most people aren't in a good place right now with their credit cards, what are they going to use? They're just going to have to work more hours. I've said this before, but in my opinion, 40 hours is now part time.